Hi guys, Miss Wilson here. I have Miss Simmons, Miss Trapp, and Miss Leonard. And today we're going to be looking at Lesson 22, Comparing and Contrasting Stories. Now remember in Lesson 20, we compared and contrasted two texts. Okay, but in the lesson for this week, we're going to be looking at story pairs. Okay, and this will give us an opportunity to compare and contrast things like our plot, our setting, and our themes. Now let's go back and let's think about what our plot, our setting, and themes actually are. We know that the plot is a set of events, and the setting is going to be where it takes place, and our theme is going to be our message or our lesson. Okay, let's think about what we already know about those things by using a familiar tale like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Okay, we know that the setting is going to take place at the bear's cottage in the woods. Okay, and then the plot or those sequence of events that happen is going to be centered around what happens while the bears are out. Okay, the bears go for a walk, and Goldilocks enters, and she takes each of the three bears to the forage. There, she tries out their seats, and actually ends up lying in their bed and eventually she tries all of those, and she likes baby bear's objects the most, it seems. Okay, and while she's lying in the baby bear's bed, the three bears return and they find her there. She wakes up and screams, jumps out of bed, and out into the woods or the forest that she goes. We do know that the theme or the lesson is don't use or take what does not belong to you or what someone has not offered you to use. And I'm going to turn it over to Miss Simmons, who's going to talk about some of the vocabulary for this week's lesson.
Hi, boys and girls. Like Miss Wilson said, we're looking at lesson 22 this week, comparing and contrasting stories. This starts on page 366 of your reading workbooks. So we're going to take a look at what you did last year in your second grade book, because as we've talked before, you're building. Each year you do a lesson and then you're going to build a little bit more on top of that the next school year. So this was your lesson last year in second grade, still called Comparing and Contrasting Stories. And your target was that reading two versions of a story will help you to see how writers can tell the same story in different ways. Now, what they were kind of talking about last year was maybe where you had like two different versions of the same type story. Like we've read different stories about Cinderella, like maybe the traditional Cinderella story and the Caribbean Cinderella, or the Creole Cinderella, where it's down south, like Louisiana in the Cajun area. So what you learned last year was those words compare and contrast, and we've talked about those for the last few weeks as well. When you compare stories, you're finding ways that they are alike. So again, compare means that they are alike. When you contrast, you're finding ways that they are different. So again, compare is the same and contrast is different. Sometimes your stories are going to have the same plot. So that means like the same kind of backstory, what's kind of really going on there. And then you're going to have some stories that they may have some different characters or different settings going on. And those would be called the versions of the story. So here in second grade, you saw two pictures from two different versions of the story Little Red Riding Hood. And you can look at the picture and you can see how they are alike and how they are different. This one on the left is the more traditional story, the Little Red Riding Hood. And this one on the right is called Pretty Salma. So I noticed just by looking at the pictures, some things that are the same. We've got a girl in both of them. She's got some sort of head covering, something on top of her head in both of them. She's carrying something in both of them. I see something looking around a tree, looks a little bit like a wolf or a dog, so some sort of animal that's kind of checking her out, seeing what's happening. Those are things that are the same. That's how we've compared the two. But when you contrast, you look at how they're different. And I think it's pretty easy for you to pick out some of the differences in these two pictures, like exactly what is she carrying. Here she's carrying a basket on her arm. Here she's carrying a different type of basket on top of her head. Here we don't know what's inside the basket, but here we can see a few items. So that sort of stuff is what you're kind of getting started with. When you look at your actual book for lesson 22 for your work this week, you notice that we've added a few more vocabulary words. Compare and contrast are still there. You've got characters, which your characters you should know are the who or what your story is about. So like in the pictures that we just saw, Little Red Riding Hood and Salma would have been characters that we saw. Here we also have the word plot, and a plot is a set of events. What's happening? What happened first, second, third, or what happened at the beginning, the middle, and the end. You talk about settings, where the action actually takes place at. And then here we've got another word, themes, and those are the messages or the lessons that the stories offer. And so then I'm going to let Miss Trapp take it a little bit further with our actual lesson from the book now.
Okay. Hey guys, we're gonna just, like she said, take it a little bit further, and I'm gonna kind of walk through a graphic organizer on page 367 with you just to kind of make sure you know how to complete this activity and there are no questions. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull that up. Okay. Okay. Can y'all see that?
Not yet.
Okay, not yet. Let's see. Okay. Here we are. Can y'all see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, great. So we never want to skip over our learning target, which is up here at the top. So basically, this has already been touched on. When you read several stories that an author has written about the same characters, you can compare. So if you look down here at these two different books, you have Super Cat and the Lost Kitten, and then you have Super Cat and the Volcano. So as you can tell, you have the same characters, but they're two different books. So let's take a minute, and I want you to look at the similarities and the differences between the two covers, okay? All right. Now you should have had some time to look at the similarities and differences. Okay, so we will use this to refer to as we're filling out our chart. Now, if you turn to page 367, you're going to see this graphic organizer. And I love a graphic organizer because this is a way to organize our information. Everything's right here in front of you. That way it's organized. So over here on this left-hand side, you're going to have your characters, your setting where the story takes place, your plot, and your theme. So let's look at book 1. It already gives you this answer. The characters in the story are Super Cat Kitten. And you can look back up here, you see Super Cat Kitten, right? Okay, so book 2, I need to look at my characters there. All right, it looks like it's just Super Cat. So in this section on your graph, you are going to write just Super Cat. Let's see if I can get that text, okay? All right, I'm gonna type in Super Cat. That's what you will do on your page also. Okay, now we're gonna look at the setting. You know, that's where the story takes place. So I need to refer back to book 1. Let's see. I'm gonna go back up to book 1. Okay. We know the setting is where the story takes place. Well, I can see a tall building in the background, so it looks like to me that it probably takes place in the city. So look at book 2. You can tell this one, the setting is going to be the volcano. So let's go to our chart and type in city, okay? All right, let me get this. All right, we're going to do text. And we said the city. So I've gone through at least 2 of the sections of the graphic organizer. And I hope this gives you a better idea of how to complete this chart. But just make sure that you are looking at both similarities and the differences. And I'm going to turn it over to Miss Leonard, and she can further explain. Thanks, guys. Let's see. There we go.
Hi guys, I'm gonna read two fables from Aesop. Y'all probably have heard about him a lot. These are ancient tales. A fable teaches a lesson. So I want you to think about if the lessons, the theme is the same or if it's different. Are the characters the same? Are they different? How are they different? What is the setting? How is that different? Maybe it is the same. So the first one I'm going to read is called The Lion and the Mouse. In the heat of the day, a lion lay asleep at the edge of a wood. He lay so still that a mouse ran right across his nose without knowing it was a nose, and a lion's at that. Bang! The lion clapped his paw to his face and felt something caught. It was furry. Lazily, he opened his eyes. He lifted up one side of his huge paw just a little bit to see what was under it, and he was amused to find a mouse. "Spare me, great king," he heard the little creature squeak in its tiny voice. "I didn't mean to do it. Let me go, and someday I will repay you." "That's very funny," said the lion, and he laughed. "How can a little thing like you help me, the great king of beasts?" "I don't know," the mouse replied, "but a little creature can sometimes help a big one." "Well, you have made me laugh," the lion said, "which is something I seldom do. And anyway, you would hardly make half a mouthful." So he raised his paw and let the mouse go. A few days later, the lion was caught in a hunter's net. What do you think is going to happen? Let's make a prediction. What do mice like to do with things? The woods rang with his angry roaring, and the little mouse heard him. "This is my kind lion," she cried. "He's in trouble." As fast as she could, she ran toward the spot from which the roaring came, and there he was. The lion was thrashing around so in the net that the mouse didn't dare to come near for fear of being crushed. "Oh, king, be patient," she cried. "I will gnaw through the ropes and set you free." Because mice like to chew things, right? And here you see the lion caught in the net. So the lion lay still while the mouse worked away with her sharp teeth, and in a short time he was able to creep out of the net. "You see, I told you I would repay you," the mouse said happily. "A little creature sometimes really can help a big one." And the lion had to admit it was true. So the theme of this story, the lesson, is little friends may prove to be great friends, okay? Now I want you to think about how this story is similar to the next one I'm going to read called The Dove and the Ant. Think about how the characters are the same or different, how the plot is the same or different, the theme, does it have the same message? Does it have the same lesson? So let me read this and you can think about those things. The dove and the ant. A thirsty ant, which had crawled into a stream, was carried away by the current. A dove, seeing it in danger of drowning, broke off a twig and threw it into the water. The ant climbed onto it and was saved. A short time afterward, a hunter tried to shoot the dove, but just as he had taken aim and was about to fire, the ant, who had crawled up the back of his leg, bit him so hard that he gave a sudden start and missed his aim. The dove flew away to safety. And the lesson or the theme of this story is one good turn deserves another. So think about how these two different stories have some similarities and differences. Compare and contrast the plot, the setting, the characters, and the theme. You can also find stories on Get Epic. I found a couple in the library that you can probably find on Get Epic. Lon Popo, which is a similar story to Red Riding Hood. And I found the Egyptian Cinderella. There's many versions of Cinderella that you can find on Get Epic and read and compare and contrast to the traditional Cinderella. So have fun with this. And see you guys next week.
Bye.
Wow.